Hello, hello, and welcome to the very first episode of the Burnout Equation podcast and YouTube series. This is a project that I've been working on over the last 6 months, and I'm very excited to bring you the results. My name is Anna Rubikina. I'm going to be your host, and I am a clinician, physical therapist, and clinic director in an outpatient orthopedic clinic in the Northeast. And over the last couple of months, I've been sitting down with different leaders in the physical therapy field who have had 10, 15, 20 plus years of experience seeing how the profession has grown and changed. We sit down, we talk about some major issues pertaining to burnout and the leadership gap in the profession. And I try to get a varied take from the different people that I talk to. So we kind of outline what the changes are, but also look for some hopeful outlooks in terms of where the profession is going. I'm really excited to bring this first conversation to you. What the interview is with none other than Ben Fung, who is somebody who I have um, memories going way back into when I was in college. Uh, on Facebook, he would be sending out job market pulses, and that was a snapshot to see kind of how we're doing as a profession. And at the time when I was, a student, I was tuned into those to really get a sense of like, okay, where are we going financially over the next couple of years as I was going to be entering the workforce. And so I was really excited about the opportunity to get to interview him and kind of get his take on kind of like what he's been seeing changing operationally over the last several years. A little bit about Ben. He was a physical therapist who has since turned into an independent media producer and marketing executive. He has a background in bioengineering and psychology, and he's pretty much seen it all. He's worked in virtually every major PTA setting, including acute care and rural home health. And he started out as a rehab aide and actually worked his way through and ultimately kind of covered all the different steps as aide to program director. Today, his primary focus is on growth strategy for companies and investors across healthcare, health tech, HR, and marketing. And he's pioneering research in contemporary kettlebell training, is a lifelong martial artist, and currently serves as the CEO of UpDoc and CFO of Recharge. So I'm really excited for this conversation. I'm really excited to share this with you guys. So without further ado, let's dive in with the personal touch piece. But um, did leadership find you, or did you find leadership?
Both. So leadership found me in the form of my then mentor. His name's Tim Smith. He was the CEO of Sharp Memorial Hospital here in San Diego. And it was just like, hey, like you're good at this and you're good for more, for lack of better terms. In the same vein, from like, I found leadership standpoint was that I recognized very early on that there's a lot that I could do to influence then like the inpatient acute care, short stay observation and wellness center ecosystem, and how it interacted and how we could cross integrate a little bit better. And so I just kind of took a look around. I was like, hey, is anybody doing anything? And the leadership above me at the time was just like, no, nobody's doing anything, but do you want to do it? Right. And so I was like, sure, I'll just say yes until I can't do stuff.
Over your career and experience, how have you seen burnout evolve?
I feel burnout now is existential, because burnout before was somebody going from outpatient, not being paid enough, skipping over to home health, being paid quite well, and then basically going, you know what, I'm just going to stick around here for a while. Now you have somebody who's burning out of outpatient within 9 months of graduation going, I think I chose the wrong profession. That's an echo of a system problem, and I think that that level of burnout is huge. And you made mention of like, burnout and leadership, like they're intertwined, and absolutely. The predictor right now is the middle manager. So if there's a middle management above as a misalignment with a line staff, that is like twice as more predictive of burnout than line management. If you lose a good leader that burns out and they really have the trust of the team, often you see a mass exodus, and a lot of clinicians just don't survive that.
Usually within a company, you'll have attrition, right? You're going to have PTs that are leaving, vacancies that are hard to fill, right? And a big kind of component of it, again, like we're talking about like the management piece, right? But there's and kind of just lack of leadership within physical therapy, or at least leadership development. And I would say that those two things are incredibly interlinked. How has leadership evolved within our profession?
When I came into PT, it was a very senior based leadership paradigm. I think to some degree that probably exists in every industry. But I feel like every industry has also come a long way from that. Now you're really seeing a big shift where you're seeing people that are not even being labeled supervisors or that much anymore. They're being labeled stuff like, clinical operations lead. They are a director, like a clinical director level. But lead makes it sound like, hey, I'm coming to lead alongside you. I'm not here to be like over you.
Do you think that we're doing enough to prepare our clinicians for the transition to leadership?
Definitively no. You always take the best technician. You go, great. We're going to take the super well tuned person of a machine and we're going to make them in charge of people. That's always what happens. And the problem is when you put them into an administrative capacity, like with zero training, you're literally setting them up to fail. Most clinicians, I think, are actually good instinctual leaders. And it requires a really special temperament to be a truly effective middle manager at scale.
What would you say kind of like what be like a really good example of good management and leadership versus, and this is speaking kind of from your experience and what your observation is between clinics that have, high turnover versus like very good retention. What would you how would you paint that picture between the two?
I find middle managers can be either the linchpin or they can be the Achilles heel to entire organizations. The difference is that you find is that the middle manager that is truly good, that's actually like an organizational leader, they're willing to take the hit on whatever they're being judged for the benefit of their people. That's the number one difference, right? Typically, once you get to middle management, you have usually like a North Star metric as part of like a huge Excel sheet, Google Sheet dashboard. The good manager is going to be like, you know what? I'm going to take this ding. I don't care that I'm not going to get my quarterly bonus, but I'm just not going to have a perfect dashboard. And that's okay. Because what's going to happen is the X amount of people under me who are my operational leads and the many, many X's under them, they're going to actually have good work lives, right? That is the middle manager that people will follow into battle and will go through horrible things with together versus the middle manager that's all about their own dashboard. And they basically tell their operational line level leads or manager, they tell them, figure it out, make it work. This is what we have to do. This. Now, sometimes that is part of the conversation, but that's not what you open with.
Yeah.
And that's how you know. That's how you know the difference. The other thing that you mentioned, which I think is absolutely key, is latency. That's a huge deal. You get feedback, you have a very small window of time to act on it, acknowledge it, and have some kind of measurable change. For pretty much any feedback, you have 2 weeks or less to acknowledge and announce a proper plan of what you're going to do.
Yeah.
From there, you have about a month to remeasure results. And it's no different than being clinical, right? Like if you came to me with back pain, I was like, oh, we'll figure it out. I got your objective measures, right? Like, no, that back pain needs to be better session one, or at least I need to trust that it will be better after another session or two of coming into the clinic. Because I got copays, right? So it's the same deal, but somehow we're not thinking that way as an industry when we treat our coworkers and like the line level workforce.
I really like that parallel with back pain because that's a language that we all understand and speak very well. I think that's kind of such a tricky piece because with seeing the rise to like through the different levels of management can be seen as a badge of honor, like I'm being seen as a trusted, valued, gifted individual that, is given the responsibility to take care of more people and make an impact within the organization. But a lot of times it's seen as a escape route out where you're going to get more administrative time. You're going to have expectation to see less patients and you're going to be paid more potentially for that. Right. So it's like our incentives are such that promote this like sort of like purely operational sort of approach towards management. What are your thoughts on that?
I do agree. I think that there's a huge incentive, especially once you get to middle management, where all of a sudden you kind of stop caring about the product you're putting out there, right? It's easy to fall into that temptation because your roles and responsibilities often have no patient facing experiences whatsoever. You're almost completely administrative. And that's the difference of, again, leadership versus, um, being a manager, or leadership versus administration. And I think we're confounded too as an industry because we can't just have anybody. Like, if you're going to be my boss, you have to at least know what I'm doing clinically. If you're my manager, I expect you, and it's not, doesn't have to be true, but I expect you to be a better clinician, right? I expect you to be better at all these different things. And I feel like that also sets us up for failure. Um, I think it needs to be more of a tandem system. But that said, I think the incentive there, like you said, can be dangerous.
Yeah, that's great insight. So if you were to redesign the profession from the ground up, what how would you layer all of this to maybe have a different future?
I think what we really need to do is separate out very well defined tracks of professional development in our field, right? Are you in this because you want to be like a master clinician in a certain area? You want to be like the TMJ person, right? The
Yeah.
pelvic health person, the vestibular person. Are you in it because you want earning protection? Like, let's clarify that. Are you in it because you want to become like a clinic director or maybe own your own clinic one day? Because that's a business objective. That's a career objective, not so much like a professional, existential goal. So I think that's where things need to start, is to recognize that there isn't just one key way or one funnel of like top three ways of going about it. And I think we've done better at that. I think another thing too is we really need to incept business administration principles in the DPT curriculum and lay out all these possibilities wide open. I think that often educational programs, whether this is a regulatory issue or this is a resource issue or what have you, um, they basically, and I don't know about you, but most students I talk to, you get like one business admin course, right? It's like pretend your own clinic, right? Everybody gets that. Pretend your own clinic for a term. Um, I think that needs to be woven into pretty much every single course. Maybe outside of our gross anatomy. I mean, like Therax, right? Like, hey, this is how you would, apply it to the clinic. This is how you would document for it. This is how you bill for it. Like, you put all that together. And then as the students mature, you start going, okay, remember how we talked about that Therax thing and how everything bills for? Well, this is how you would take a look at it as a clinic director, or this is how you would take a look at it as like a utilization review clinician. What you end up doing is you weave all sorts of industrial context into the didactic curriculum so that they have a far bigger lens of what they're actually walking to. You have this huge pie that's our profession, but clinical's like this big. And I see we need to open up the rest of the pie during the educational process and even during the employee onboarding process. I think that is a gold mine waiting to happen. I think organizations have to really understand how to onboard their clinical employees. My goodness, you will not believe where you are in like 18 months.
Absolutely. What is one trend that you're either excited about or worried about that you see evolving over the next 10 years?
One thing I'm excited and worried about is the aging population. So it's a passion point for me. I think that we don't set up our society to age. I wouldn't even say gracefully. Like, people are like falling and breaking their ankle, breaking their hip, like at age like 55, 60, and they're decrepit after. And I feel like we have failed on that. That worries me. What excites me is that I feel like there's a large segment of clinicians that have recognized that and they're really dipping into that strong, right? They're doing stuff that's like, senior strength and conditioning. And,
Yeah.
I teach courses for that kind of stuff where, we toss clinicians around on crash pads to teach them how to break fall so that they can teach their people how to break fall. And so I think there's a huge like population health effect that we can really, really make sweeping changes, from cradle to grave, is just like physical resilience and strong aging that really excites me. But it needed to have started 10 years ago, right? And they are dipping into that aspect of clinical care and of wellness and of population health management and of societal health welfare. And I think that has some real potential to create changes in our world.
Yeah. Awesome. Let's talk about those new clinicians going to management. This will be our last question to kind of tie it together. What is your one piece of advice to a clinician transitioning to leadership in the future?
I look back, I look back and I think that what I missed, in corporate management, like my fail points really had to do with not understanding what my boss's boss was after.
Yeah.
And that led me to a lot of frustration. So, assuming you have that many layers of management, I think that if you're going into leadership, it not only means that you're going to be leading people and teams of people, it also means that you're going to have to be the caretaker of certain administrative roles and responsibilities. And I think those are going to weigh heavier on you from a stress point than it's going to be your people. I think most people that enter this profession are already natural born leaders. Um, they may need a little bit of curating, maybe a little bit of training on that, but it's the admin piece, I think, that will either make you sink or swim. And I think understanding what a couple layers above you are really looking for in your position will really, really help you be able to make the balance of the two into a point where you might actually find some synergy. So that's my advice.
That's critical. That's awesome. All right. Well, that's it. Thanks, Ben. This was I think we got into some really interesting conversation points here. So I appreciate your insight
Yeah.
and that yeah, that we were able to do this.